The night I realized Camille was cheating, I didn't flip the table, didn't punch walls, didn't cry. I just watched her phone screen go dark and placed it gently back on the counter. It had been opened to a message thread labeled simply R. No emoji hearts, no kissy faces. Just logistics. Rooms booked. Front desk knows to charge it to the backup card. Don't worry, I made sure to park a few blocks away. He still thinks I'm at hot yoga. I remember reading that one 3 times. She came home glowing that night. Tried to play it off, said her quads were sore, she needed a shower. Kissed me like it was a chore. Smelled like perfume that didn't belong to us. And cash. She smelled like money. Not the kind that comes from working. The kind that's handed to you after dessert and champagne. She left her phone in the bathroom while she showered. I didn't touch it again. Didn't need to. I already knew what I needed to know. What mattered next wasn't catching her. It was catching him. So I started leaving subtle clues. Little things. Camille didn't notice. She was too busy playing girlfriend of the year behind my back. But I knew that whoever was bankrolling her secrets wouldn't stay behind the curtain for long. He'd show himself eventually. He'd want control. And he did 12 days later. I was in the back of the garage at the shop, wiping down a torque wrench when I heard the door open. I looked up. He didn't belong here. Not in that jacket. Not in those shoes. Polished. Older than me by maybe 15 years. Silver at the temples, and not the kind you earn under a hood. Dean. I nodded once. He didn't introduce himself right away, just stepped in carefully, like the concrete might bite him. Name's Richard. I'm a friend of Camille's. I stayed quiet. He pulled a slim envelope from inside his jacket. White. Heavy. Clean. Slid it across the workbench like he was offering me a settlement agreement. 15,000, he said. In cash. Walk away quietly. Let her go. It'll be easier for everyone. I looked at it. Didn't touch it. That's all. I asked. Calm. Even. That's respect, he said. This isn't personal. You and Camille, it's over. Everyone knows it but you. This is a clean break. I wiped my hands on a rag. Let the moment stretch. Then I looked him dead in the eye. 75. He blinked. Come again. You want me to walk out of a 10-year marriage with a plastic envelope and a handshake? That's going to cost 75. Minimum. He started to laugh. Thought I was joking. Then he realized I wasn't. You've got some balls, he said. I'll give you that. No, I said. You gave me 15. You want the rest of this clean? Write the check. He hesitated for a second, then pulled out a monogrammed checkbook and one of those slim executive pens. No hesitation in the hand. He was used to writing people off. I don't usually do this in garages, he muttered. Then I guess we're both stepping outside our comfort zones. He scratched out the number. $75,000. Signed it with a tight curl at the end of his name like he was proud of it. We done? He asked. I took the check. Folded it once. Didn't smile. We're done when I cash this. He gave me a final nod. Smart man. Most guys make it messy. You're choosing peace. Yeah, I said. Peace. Then he walked out like he'd won something. But here's the thing. I never wanted the money. I wanted him. And now I had him on paper. His name. His signature. The moment he tried to buy off a husband like a parking ticket. That check wasn't my exit. It was my entry fee. And I was going to use every damn dollar. To bury both of them. I cashed the check the next morning. Told the bank clerk it was a settlement from a real estate deal gone sideways. She nodded, smiled politely. No questions asked. The money hit my private account in 48 hours. I stared at the balance for a long time. $75,000. Clean numbers. Blood money. Fuel. I didn't touch a cent at first. Not until I knew exactly what I wanted to build. Then I made a list. Not an emotional one. Not a revenge fantasy scrawled in red pen. No. This was logistics. Top of the list. Drone with thermal and night vision. 3 wireless cameras, motion activated. Burner phone with a secure SIM. Laptop, clean OS. Access to an online printing service that didn't ask questions. Then I bought tools. Actual tools. Things Camille wouldn't think twice about seeing in the garage: clamps, wires, screws, electrical panels. And I went to work. I installed the cameras on slow Sundays when Camille left for her Pilates double-block 2 hours, like clockwork. One in the hallway by our bedroom. One angled low, pointed at the front door. One, the sneakiest, in the garage, mounted in a fake light fixture. She never noticed. She was too busy leaving extra early, coming home smelling like hotel-grade soap and second-hand aftershave. The drone I tested late at night. out over the backyard. Quiet as a whisper, responsive as a lie. Once I knew the gear worked, I set the trap wider. I started tailing her. Not like a man obsessed, like a man conducting an audit. She'd take her car to the gym, leave it there, then hop into a champagne-colored BMW that pulled around the corner right on schedule. I followed them twice. Once to a boutique hotel in the city. Once to a penthouse complex with valet parking and no listed tenants. I didn't film those nights. Not yet. I wanted to know how deep this went. That's when I noticed something strange. Camille wasn't always alone. Twice, I caught her being picked up, while Richard was already in the building. Twice, I saw a different woman leave from the same entrance half an hour later. Not Camille. Someone younger. And the doorman? He didn't even flinch. Just nodded like it was routine. So I waited. Parked 2 blocks down, blackout tint on my truck. 3 hours later, another woman left. Then another. Same car. Same driver. Different faces. I took photos. Timestamps. License plates. And suddenly, this wasn't about Camille anymore. This was about Richard. And whatever sick little kingdom he was running behind those luxury walls. He hadn't just bribed me. He'd given me a war chest. To fund his own collapse. Camille had no idea she was being watched. That's what made it almost boring, how easily she slipped into comfort once she thought I'd rolled over. She came home lighter now, humming while she wiped down countertops, all smiles and soft touches that landed flat. She even started wearing that cheap silk robe again, the one she used to toss in the back of the closet like it offended her skin. It was like she thought I was too broken to notice, too tired to ask questions, too humiliated to keep looking. And honestly, I let her believe that. It made things easier. I took more overtime at the shop, or so she thought. In reality, I was spending most evenings in the garage, and not to fix cars. I built a workstation tucked behind the tool racks, quiet and out of sight, with a dedicated laptop running a secure OS and a portable hard drive labeled tax records that contained nothing of the sort. On that drive, I started a folder titled Operation Exit Wound. Inside, screenshots, videos, timestamps, audio files, financial tracking logs, and a growing web of connections, not just between Camille and Richard, but between Richard and a pattern I was starting to recognize. A pattern that suggested this wasn't his first game of house with someone else's wife. Each piece I added wasn't for rage, or court, or some grand final showdown. It was documentation, precision, evidence. I wasn't building a revenge story. I was building a case file. One night, Camille made the mistake of putting her phone down on the coffee table while she stepped out onto the balcony for a drink and a long, fake call with her sister. I waited until the sliding door clicked shut and calmly tapped into the Bluetooth menu on my laptop. She hadn't turned off pairing mode. Rookie move. Her phone linked without protest, and suddenly, I had access to everything. Her recent calls, her cloud backups, her synced voicemails. I wasn't shocked by what I found, but the ease of it was insulting. The worst was a call to her friend, Danielle, I think, recorded on speaker. Camille was laughing, not nervous, not ashamed. Just laughing. Dean's so predictable. I think he actually believes I'm trying to work things out. You think he suspects anything? Please. He's still fixing the damn garbage disposal like it matters. I could walk in with Richard's shirt on and he'd ask if I wanted dinner. They both laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I played that clip back 4 times. Not because I was in pain. Because I was checking the audio levels, making sure it was crisp. I added it to the folder. Labeled it, Confidence, Evidence 7A. From there, I started stitching together timelines. The weekends she claimed to visit her mother? She was checking into one of Richard's downtown properties. The business trips he claimed were client-facing only? Same dates. Same cities. Same charges to the same offshore card tied to a dummy LLC that owned a 3rd-floor penthouse in his name. It wasn't just adultery. It was a system. This man didn't have a mistress. He had a roster. By the 3rd week of digging, I had cataloged 5 women linked to Richard over the past 2 years, all married, all local, all funneled through the same cycle. Bribe, disappear, replace. And Camille? She was just the next face in a long rotation. But she didn't know that yet. And I wasn't going to tell her. I was going to show her all. In front of every person who ever believed her version of the story. The more I peeled back, the less surprised I became. Camille's betrayal had started this. But Richard was something else entirely. This wasn't a one-time affair. This wasn't passion or desperation or 2 broken people clinging to comfort. It was a business. A well-oiled machine run by a man who thought the rules didn't apply to him. The first real crack in his armor came through a throwaway detail, an online delivery receipt buried in a shared folder Camille never logged out of. She probably didn't even know she had access to it. I traced it back to a private condo address tucked behind a security gate in an upscale development just off the river. No listed resident name. No doorbell. Only a 6-digit passcode panel and a silent front porch light. I waited 3 days before I made my move. Late evening, around 9:30. Not early enough to seem suspicious, not late enough to draw neighborhood attention. I parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot. Wore gloves. Black hoodie. No plates on the drone case strapped to my back. I didn't go through the front. I went around back, down the embankment, and launched the drone from the tree line. High-end model. Low hum. Thermal and night vision engaged. It flew up, hovered, adjusted, and there it was, 3rd floor, corner unit. 1 man, 3 women. No visible cameras, 1 set of keys on the table. He wasn't just hosting. He was managing. They weren't guests. They were clients. Or products. Or maybe just names on a spreadsheet. The next morning, I followed the receipts. I pulled property tax records. Ownership was buried under a string of shell companies that all led back to a trust account with the initials RMB, Richard M. Brenner. The condo wasn't his home. It was his hub. From there, it was a slow drip of horrifying clarity. There were 4 properties in his name under 4 separate LLCs. 2 condos. 1 townhouse. 1 farmhouse just past county lines with a guest house that had recently been renovated for comfort and privacy. I tracked gift purchases, high-end bags, heels, jewelry. Every item shipped to a P.O. box or drop address. All logged under different aliases. And then I found the scripts. PDFs stored in a cloud drive linked to a burner Gmail account tied to one of his companies. They were labeled like onboarding files. Welcome_packet 1, engagement_template 2, discretion_NDA 3. Each file read like a damn training manual for manipulation. How to address the husband if caught. When to escalate with money. What phrases to repeat during confrontation. Even sample text messages pre-written to handle emotional fallout. There were lines Camille had used on me, word for word. And then, I found the log. First names only. Photos blurred just enough to skirt liability, but not enough to hide expressions. 1 by 1. Married. Married. Engaged. Married. Newly separated. There were dates, payment structures, lengths of engagement, average cost per month. But the one that stopped me cold? Lana, 19, full support. 19. He was 57. And if that wasn't bad enough, the next browser tab in the cache history made my stomach twist. It wasn't porn. It wasn't anything illegal. It was the website for the Red Ribbon Foundation, a women's protection and advocacy group. And his wife was on the board. She ran charity fundraisers for abused women, spoke on panels, had a quote on the homepage about integrity and empowerment. And meanwhile, her husband was running a damn sugar stable behind her back. That was the moment everything shifted. It wasn't just about Camille anymore. It wasn't even about me. It was about every man who'd ever been laughed at for not measuring up. Every woman used and discarded behind velvet curtains. Every girl like Lana who didn't even know she was being trafficked in plain sight, under 5-star chandeliers. I closed the folder. Took a deep breath. Then I opened a new document. Title: Phase 2, Exposure. They wanted this to be quiet. Now I was going to make it loud. I told Camille I was going out of town for the weekend. Fishing trip, I said. Old buddy from high school. Just the 2 of us. Cheap motel near a lake, beers and boredom, the kind of story designed to put her completely at ease. She didn't ask a single question. In fact, she looked relieved. Kissed my cheek, said something about enjoying time with the guys, and then disappeared into the bedroom to spend the next hour texting under the blanket. I didn't mind. I needed the quiet. Had too much to do. I didn't head to the lake. I drove 3 hours in the opposite direction and checked into a small business hotel near the airport. Nothing fancy, beige walls, burnt coffee in the lobby, a front desk clerk who didn't care why you were there as long as you paid up front. Exactly the kind of place where people didn't ask questions. I rented the conference room on the 2nd floor. Told them it was for a small vendor training session. Paid cash. Left no name on the reservation. Then I started setting the table. I covered the table in black linen. Set up 8 chairs, 2 more against the wall. A laptop with a clean feed. A mini projector. And in the center of the table, 8 black folders, glossy, unmarked, thick. Inside each one, printed screenshots of texts, photos from the drone, audio transcripts, dates, locations, timestamps. A copy of the check Richard gave me, his signature, his handwriting, a list of shell companies and their ownership trail, the property records linking him to the sugar condos, a full profile of Camille's romantic timeline under the alias he gave her. I left nothing out. If they were going to see it, they were going to see all of it. I sent out the invitations next, quiet, strategic, sealed. One to Richard's wife, addressed to her private foundation office. Another to her divorce attorney, delivered via courier with a single line on the envelope. You want to see this before next quarter. One to Camille's parents. One to her sister. I debated inviting Camille herself. Not because I wanted to spare her, but because I wanted to control the moment. If she saw it all unfold in front of people who used to believe her, it would burn deeper. In the end, I decided she wouldn't get a seat. She'd get her own performance, private and undeniable. But not yet. The final touch was a small gift box on each chair. Inside, a USB drive with the raw files, a pair of earbuds, a printed quote that I folded by hand and sealed with red wax. The quote came from a speech Richard's wife gave just last year, standing behind a podium, smiling wide as cameras flashed. A woman's power begins when she learns to stop apologizing for other people's behavior. I figured she deserved to hear her own words again, this time, with context. I finished setting everything up by 1 a.m. Didn't sleep. Didn't eat. Just sat there in that stale hotel chair, staring at what I'd built. I'd been patient, silent, measured, but now the fuse was lit. And in 2 days' time, when those people sat down around that table and saw what I saw, everything would change. By the time I got home Sunday night, I was calm. Not the kind of calm that comes after a long drive or a few beers. The kind that sets in when every piece is exactly where you need it to be and all that's left is gravity. Camille was in the kitchen when I walked through the door, glass of wine in hand, leaning against the counter like she hadn't just spent the weekend in another man's bed. She wore the smile she saved for when she thought she had the upper hand, soft, effortless, lips barely parted like she was auditioning for something. She asked how the trip went, already turning back to her phone before I finished mumbling something about fish and rain. I told her I'd brought something back. That got her attention. She turned, eyebrows raised. I watched the flicker of calculation in her eyes, expectation wrapped in performance. She thought I was trying to win her back. Maybe she thought the silence, the distance, the quiet nods had finally broken into guilt. I handed her a small envelope. Inside, a voucher for a weekend at the Langston Spa and Suites, a resort she'd once posted about on Instagram under a someday hashtag. Attached was a full itinerary, 2 nights in the Skyline Suite, private spa treatments, room service credit, and a bottle of imported wine waiting on ice. All prepaid. All covered by his money. Camille's lips parted, then closed, then curled into a look of stunned disbelief. She asked if I was serious. I told her she deserved a break. Said something about how relationships were hard, how maybe we both needed a reset, how time apart could bring clarity. She nodded like she believed me. Maybe she did. She said thank you with that same voice she used when she used to pretend to be touched by birthday cards. She packed light, giddy, and rushed. She changed outfits twice. She even wore the necklace Richard gave her last fall, the one she pretended came from a vendor holiday box. I drove her to the resort myself. We made small talk the whole way up, traffic, music, something about her sister's dog. She didn't notice I was only answering every other question. Didn't notice I never asked one back. When we arrived, she leaned over the console and kissed my cheek. I let her. She got out, disappeared through the front doors in heels too high for real walking, already filming the lobby on her phone. I pulled away slowly, parked just far enough down the road to connect to the resort's private network, one I had remote access to, courtesy of a friend who owed me a favor in IT security. The hotel room had been wired the night before, 2 micro cameras disguised inside the vanity mirror and the chandelier above the bed. The feed was clean, angles perfect, audio sharp enough to catch breath shifts. I synced the stream to my laptop and marked the folder. Camille_raw_48HR. And then I uploaded it to a drive already preloaded into the laptops I'd set out in the conference room the day before. Every guest who sat down would be able to open a file titled Live, Her Weekend Getaway, and they'd see exactly what she looked like behind the curtain. Not ashamed, not sorry, but dancing in the ashes of everything she once promised to protect. I sat in my truck until the light in her suite went out. Watched her pour the wine. Watched her check the mirror. She didn't look worried. She looked proud, like she'd gotten away with it. And I smiled, just once, before driving off into the dark, because she had no idea that the room she was about to sleep in was the same room that would bury her in front of everyone she'd ever fooled. The room filled slowly. First came Richard's wife, power blazer, oversized sunglasses, tight lips. She didn't make eye contact with the receptionist. She didn't look up when she entered the conference room. She just walked in like she was stepping into a courtroom, already knowing what verdict was coming. Behind her came a man I recognized from her charity's website, divorce attorney, sharp eyes, lean build, no small talk. He carried a leather case and moved like he'd been briefed, but didn't know the half of it yet. Camille's parents came next. Her father looked older than I remembered, thinner, like disappointment had started carving into his bones. Her mother wore guilt on her face before the first file was even opened, like deep down, she'd always known Camille was never quite as clean as she looked. Then came the wild card, Camille's sister. She was quieter, kept to the corner, arms crossed tight. But she watched everything, every movement, every blink, like she'd been waiting for this moment to finally prove a suspicion she'd never dared say out loud. I didn't sit at the table with them. I stood, back against the wall, calm, hands folded. I didn't need to narrate anything, didn't need to explain what they were about to see. Instead, I walked to the projector remote, pressed one button, and stepped back. The lights dimmed. The first video played. It wasn't graphic. Not yet. Just Camille stepping into the Langston suite, laughing into her phone, kicking off her heels, and grabbing the wine bottle like she'd come home from war. She poured a glass, flipped open her overnight bag, and pulled out a silk wrap and the necklace Richard gave her, the one I'd seen in his receipts. Then came the audio. Her voice, talking to someone on the phone. He thinks this was a gift. Said I needed to reconnect with myself. God, he's dense. Honestly, I might just stay the weekend and never come back. A few in the room shifted. I could feel the temperature drop. The video cut, shifted, played again. Different date, different woman, different suite. One by one, the timeline unfolded not just of Camille, but of Richard's entire sugar web. His pattern, his women, the gifts, the transactions, the scripts, the training. Every click of the mouse led to another secret. Every page of the folders I handed out contained names, receipts, dates, files. No one interrupted. Not once. They didn't need to. The truth was speaking clearly enough. When the final clip ended, a clip of Camille slipping into bed next to Richard, laughing as she checked herself in the mirror, I shut off the projector. No speech. No grand declaration. I walked to the table, picked up one of the black folders, slid it across to Richard's wife, and then nodded to the man beside her. Everything you need is in there. Divorce papers will be clean. The real estate trail's annotated. And the digital evidence is archived. Passwords on the back. He opened the folder and began reading. Camille's mother started crying. Her father stood up, walked out without a word. Her sister? She was still sitting still, hands clenched, jaw tight, eyes burning holes through the floor. Richard's wife didn't cry, didn't scream. She stood, took the folder, looked at me for the first time. I hope she watches this alone, and I hope it breaks her. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. They filed out slowly. Some stunned, some broken, some just quiet. When the last one left, I turned the lights back on, packed the laptop, and walked out. I didn't leave a note. Didn't leave a trace. Because when you tell the truth loud enough, it doesn't need a narrator. It just echoes. Camille came home 2 days later. She walked through the front door like nothing had changed, carrying the same designer weekend bag Richard bought her, still wearing the necklace like it meant something. She called out for me like we were still playing house, like maybe we'd have dinner and talk about our feelings over wine. But the silence met her first. The living room was empty. No jacket on the coat rack. No boots by the door. No half-full coffee mug on the table. She walked through the house slowly, calling my name again, quieter this time, like she already knew what was happening but wasn't ready to face it. And when she reached the bedroom, she finally saw it. The closet door stood open. My side. Empty. Drawers pulled out. Bathroom cabinet stripped. Only thing I left was the shaving mirror, because I knew every time she looked into it, she'd be staring straight at the woman who burned her own life to the ground. On the bed was an envelope. Inside, A copy of the check Richard wrote me, and a note in my handwriting, for words only. Thanks for the funding. She didn't scream. Not right away. But the neighbors told me later. She spent most of the night pacing the yard, sobbing into her phone, leaving voicemails that no one answered. Because I wasn't there. And I wouldn't be coming back. I'd already moved out a week before the spa trip. Everything I owned was boxed and gone before she packed her first pair of heels. I didn't ghost her. I dismissed her. Camille's parents disowned her within days of the presentation. Her father refused to take her calls. Her mother released a statement to their family group chat saying they were stepping back indefinitely. Her sister posted a passive-aggressive quote on Instagram. Some people burn bridges and then wonder why they're standing alone. Richard's collapse was messier. Louder. His wife filed immediately, tied every property to his name, froze his assets. The Red Ribbon Foundation scrubbed his name from every corner of their site within 24 hours. He tried to reach out too, sent an email from a burner account I recognized by the cheap sarcasm. You happy now? I didn't reply, because there was nothing left to say. I didn't need Camille to apologize. Didn't want her to explain. There were no answers that mattered anymore. She started sending flowers. Then letters. The kind that come folded in half, written in rushed script, begging for understanding. One even said she'd been used, that Richard had manipulated her, that she was vulnerable, confused, ashamed. She asked to meet. Just once. She said she didn't want closure, just clarity. I didn't reply. Then she showed up. I saw it on the security camera feed. She stood on the porch of my new place, eyes sunken, hair up in a loose bun, wearing a jacket she'd never bothered to zip properly. She knocked once. Waited. Knocked again. Then she sat on the step for almost an hour. I watched from inside. Not because I was tempted. Not because I wanted to see her cry. But because I wanted her to understand something she never believed. You don't get to betray someone, and then ask to be comforted when the consequences show up. She left eventually. Didn't look back. That was the last time I ever saw her. And the silence after she was gone? It wasn't emptiness. It was peace. I moved 2 towns over. Small place. Quiet. Rented a cabin on the edge of a lake. Then bought it outright once the settlement from Richard's wife's divorce cleared. A little thank you from her legal team for the evidence package. They didn't say the words, but the money spoke loud enough. I sold the house Camille and I lived into a young couple. They painted over the walls. Tore out the garden she used to pose in for Instagram. Left the mailbox rusted. Good. I kept the new place simple. No TV. Just a workbench, a fire pit, and shelves of tools she used to mock. I started building again, real things. Tables. Chairs. A canoe. Sold a few online. Locals started asking for more. By spring, it was a business. Nobody knew my story. Nobody needed to. I checked the surveillance feeds for 2 weeks after Camille's last visit. She never came back. I blocked her number. Burned the letters. Richard's name never resurfaced. Rumor was he moved south. Word was alone. The email came on a Monday. No subject line. Just a name I didn't recognize. Inside was one sentence. I was one of them. You gave me my out. Thank you. Attached was a screenshot. A girl in a graduation gown, smiling wide. Middle finger aimed at the camera, captioned, "Not your sugar baby anymore." I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The war was over. And I was still standing.